Welcome inside this week opening edition of Big Ten Today. I'm your host, Rick Pizzo. Promise I won't be solo for long. Dave Wanstead will be here shortly. Some really interesting and cool coaching perspective on what the days leading up to the NFL draft are like. We'll take you inside a team war room, the discussion between coaches, GMs, and scouts about which players to take when you're on the clock. We also head out west to LA, our first exclusive interview with new USC Hoops head coach Eric Musselman. All that to come a little bit later in the show, but we begin with the big story, and there are so many stories this spring in Ann Arbor. Defending champs? Yes. J.J. McCarthy? No. So who will be the new QB? What will year one with Sharon Moore as the full-time head coach be like? And how about all the changes on defense? So much to ponder as Michigan looks to defend its Big Ten and national championships. For much more on the spring game and all the Michigan storylines, we welcome in Sam Webb, Michigan insider with 24/7 Sports. Sam, everybody wants to talk about the quarterback. We understand why. In college football, it is the difference-making position. So what do we see right now, and what did we see on Saturday in the race to be the man who replaces J.J. McCarthy?
You know, Rick, glad to be with you, man. Long time that it's been since I've been on Big Ten Network. So glad to be here to talk about what is an ongoing competition. I think that's what you take away, is that it's still a race, to use what you said in the intro there. A lot of folks thought that this would be Alex Orji for sure, and I think Davis Warren showed in the game on Saturday what was the case for a number of practices this spring where he shined the brightest. Now, there were other practices where it was Orji who is shining the brightest, and he's the guy that maybe fans are most familiar with because he was on the field last year, mostly in a running capacity. He's really made some strides throwing the football, but Davis Warren was super crisp. I mean, he's 6 for 9 passing, I think for about 136 yards. But what was most notable to me, Rick, was 4 of those passes came with pressure in his face. Including his big touchdown pass to Fred Moore, where he eludes pressure, drifts to his right, throws back to his left across the middle in stride that allowed Fred Moore to catch and run. It shows that this is a battle that will go into the summer for those guys as they work on their own, and then into the fall where we can see which guy can do it the most consistently, especially as you also interject into the equation and Jack Tuttle, who has some Big Ten starts under his belt. So it's still a race. I think that's the big takeaway.
Yeah, Davis Warren averaging about 23 yards per completion. If there was one knock on the Michigan offense, and J.J. last year, was that everything was short, over the middle. Certainly like to take the top off when you can. You also have a running back that you can use both carrying the football and a terrific pass catcher out of the backfield. A lot of folks were shocked when Donovan Edwards announced that he would be back. So what's the ceiling for Edwards this year if the guys around him play to their ability as well?
Yeah, he's a special talent, man. And I wasn't surprised given what his goal was last year. I talked to him a lot last summer, and he anticipated having the kind of season that would allow him to go to the pros. And it just didn't work out that way. He had a surgery during last offseason that kind of limited him in practice. And it was just a bumpier start to the season, I think, in part due to that. But he really came on, and by the end of the year, and you saw it in the national championship game, he has that special game-breaking talent. And I think his biggest evolution was in mentality. Like, if you know, I've known Donovan since he was a sophomore in high school. He is a home run hitter. And one of the things you see with home run hitters, Rick, is they try to hit the home run all the time. And I think that was Donovan. I think as he has gotten deeper into his career, and you saw it in the national championship game, he tries to stay within the framework of the play. That first touchdown in that championship game, it was an open zone where he runs into the back of his blocker because he is trying to press that A gap. He is trying to stay within the framework of the play, but an explosive came out of that. And I think you're seeing more of that maturity as a runner from him now. You throw into it his ability to catch it out of the backfield, his ability to really show vision and patience. He is poised to have an outstanding season. And I think he's the kind of guy that if he has the year that he's expecting to have, people look at him the way they looked at Jahmyr Gibbs a couple years ago.
It was a small sample size on Saturday, but even in those 5 carries, showing a lot of patience, waiting for his blockers, waiting for those holes to open up. Any other offensive players, Sam, that either stood out to you Saturday or that have stood out during the course of spring ball that may be new names to folks, even those who follow Michigan football?
Yeah, so Fred Moore would be the obvious one because he had the biggest splash play of the day. He also caught a corner route earlier in the game. I believe that was from Jaden Denegal. So when you talk to the coaches and players about who's the guy most equipped to take the top off the defense, is Fred Moore. So he is the name to really watch. Marlon Klein at tight end. He led the game in receptions, and he's a guy who's flashed all spring. We knew he was a pass catcher, but his ability as an inline blocker, I think, has been a bit of a revelation. I'm not saying that he's arrived or he's going to be AJ Barner from last year, but I think he's farther down that line than maybe a lot of folks expected him to be heading into the spring. So I thought that was really impressive. Not just him catching the ball. Very first run for Donovan Edwards. He comes off the line on a double team with Andrew Gentry, gets to the second level and gets the linebacker, and that helps spring the play. So that was a really big one for Marlon Klein. And then a name that the other touchdown reception for Davis Warren was to Kendrick Bell, Ronnie Bell's little brother, and he came out of the contest saying, "I don't want people to call me Ronnie's little brother. I want them to call me Kendrick. You catch touchdown passes, they'll call you Kendrick." And so we're calling Kendrick Bell today, and that's a guy I think they're really looking to maybe be another weapon for them as the season unfolds.
Hey, you keep catching touchdown passes, they'll call you pretty much anything you want. Let's go to the other side of the ball. The great news, when you have awesome defensive coordinators, you usually have great defenses. That's been the case for Michigan. The bad news, that means those defensive coordinators often move on to new opportunities. In comes Wink Martindale, a guy, Sam, with vast experience and a reputation as a really aggressive play caller. What do you think that means for the defense that we'll see on the field in 2024?
Yeah, man, it's a great question, Rick. I think Michigan fans are a little nervous about it because his aggression is on a different level than his understudies. So you got to remember, when Mike McDonald and Jesse Mentor are understudies of Wink Martindale, he came in the door saying, "I'm the guru of this defense." I mean, there's not got to be any drop off, right? But there is going to be a difference. I mean, every guy has their own spin on it, and his spin is ultra aggression, but he has the luxury of not really needing to be that aggressive to get pressure. You got the best defensive line in the country. You add a Jayshon Barham, who's like a chess piece, who comes over from Maryland. You could bring him off the edge. We saw him, blitzing up the middle in the game. So you have the ability to really accentuate pressure. The question is going to be how do you balance it for a team who I think was a defense that really stood out because of its versatility and how multiple it was on the back end with its coverages. Yes, he was aggressive in the game Saturday. What stuck out more to me than his aggression was the amount of man defense he played behind it. I don't know that he really showed what they're going to do. I think if you watch his career, you watch him with Baltimore, you watch him with the Giants, you think it's going to be a heavy sort of preponderance of man coverage. But this is a really smart defense with some veteran guys on the back end that allow you to play a lot of different coverages. And I would be surprised if we don't see him mix it up like we saw Jesse Mentor mix it up some last year, but maybe with a little more aggression and a little more man defense in there. But Wink's going to be Wink, to your point, Rick. He is going to be ultra aggressive.
So which of those veterans, especially those on the back end, will be the leaders of the defense to bring along the young guys that fill so many holes, not just last year, Sam, but the last couple of years? How many guys have moved on to the NFL? And among those young guys, who do you think has the biggest upside?
Man, you're out here about the Wally Pip Dave Revson with these questions, man. You're on a roll here, Rick. I'm just saying, man. Here, I think part of what makes them special is not just the talent, but the culture. So who's going to lead them? Their stars lead by performance and by example. Will Johnson, absolute star, MVP, defensive MVP of the national championship game. And he, I think, has taken a lot of those guys in the secondary under his wing. When they weren't in practice, they were at his workouts. You look up front, Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham. These are two guys who are elite. they are going to be first-round draft picks. And then you complement them with Derek Moore and Josiah Stewart, guys who played a lot of snaps last year, made a lot of plays, but were behind some seniors, and now they're ready to lead as well. So what you see, or what I see, is these guys all kind of teaching the youngsters that are expecting to step up that the expectation is for the position, and that with that comes an expectation for how you're going to prepare. Like, they have, one of the things that stands out to me over the course of the spring was that the older guys at one point kind of took the young guys, this is after a practice, they took the young guys to the side and said, listen, there is a way that you prepare to be a champion. None of these guys experienced the downside, the downturn before Michigan won Big Ten titles. When they were 2-4 and when they were losing to Ohio State, there's a preparation, a level of preparation that comes with that. And I think that was, as much as anything else, about teaching them about scheme and coverages and blitzes. It was culture and how to prepare. And those veteran guys, I think, on defense especially, have done a really good job of ingraining that in young guys that are expected to step up. Guys like Jair Hill, who was good in the game. DJ Waller, who was good in the game. Zeke Berry, a young safety who was good in the game. All these young guys have been getting heavy doses of this is how you prepare to be a champion. And that was ringing through to me in the game as well.
You bring up the word expectations. They never change in Ann Arbor, no matter who is wearing the head whistle. And this year it's Sharon Moore. I know he had a taste of being a head coach last year, but you and I both know it's entirely different when you have an entire year and when you are the man. Have there been any changes in approach or mentality from Sharon this spring in comparison to when he was just in quotes, the OC?
Yeah, man, it's so I wouldn't say that the change or the difference is evident in anything you see on the field. I think they're culturally the same. They're philosophically the same. Might there be some tweaks to their approach? I think that's mostly due to personnel, though. Their DNA is as a physical smash mouth running offense. I think you've already got a glimpse of who Sharon is as a coach. Last year, it was really important, I think, in the evaluation process for Ward Manuel to see him in those crunch time games at the end of the season. And the game that Ward keeps referencing, he did it again on Saturday to a group of donors. It's that Penn State game, Rick, where they run it like 32 times in a row or whatever it was. I think back to the Washington game back in 2021, where they were in a game where your quarterback couldn't complete a pass. For whatever reason, he just wasn't on that day, and they ran it down Washington's throat. Now, they couldn't throw a pass against Penn State for a different reason. They couldn't block them against Penn State. And so Sharon, kind of drawing on that experience from 2 years ago when he was a co-OC, kind of applying it in a different scenario and saying, listen, it's not about your plan. You got hit in the mouth. How are you going to react? Well, we got to throw our game plan out of the window and go with something that's going to work. And that is running the rock because they can't stop it. That's what I think he is as a coach. Yeah, I got a plan of who we are and how we are going to win games. But if I have to adapt on the fly, I can do it. Culturally, we're going to be physical. Culturally, we're going to be accountable. Culturally, we're going to be together. He is very much an embodiment of everything they were leading up to the championship. And I think that's a big reason why he got hired. I think that's a big reason why these guys have really bought in out the gate to what he's bringing to the table.
The more things change, the more they stay the same. I love the fact that Sam brings up that 21 game against Washington. Of course, the quarterback for Michigan back then, Cade McNamara, who will now be playing with Iowa this year. Washington will now be a member of the Big Ten. All things we could have predicted 2.5 years ago. Sam Webb, Michigan insider for 24/7. Great info. Awesome to catch up. Enjoyed it, my friend.
All right. Thanks, Rick. Appreciate it.
We are excited to welcome one of the league's newest coaches to the show, Eric Musselman, joining us next as the USC Hoops head man gets set to lead the Trojans into a brand new Big Ten era.